This podcast contains mature and adult themes and is not suitable for children. Listener discretion is advised.
Like, I first discovered Facebook, let's say, when I was in the 8th grade or something. So this must have been
13, 14.
Yeah, around that time. I remember there was this thing called poke on Facebook.
Yeah. Which somehow to me still has sexual connotations. Like,
Correct.
so and so poked you. And I'm like,
Correct.
no, they didn't.
So when a dude would poke me, I'd be like, huh?
yeah, yeah,
You know,
ye kya? Yeah.
This is not seeming very heterosexual.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to The Queer Podcast and our episode on the conundrums of dating in the queer world. Sad as it is, I'm still single, old and looking for my Prince Charming. Heck, forget the Prince Charming, just a regular age-appropriate, sane, intelligent, funny and well-hung person will do fine, but apparently that's a tall order. And even though popular perception dictates that most queer folks are just a bunch of horn dogs wanting to get off with each other, I think at heart, most of us would love and prefer to find someone to build a life with. But it's crazy out there, and even though we now have the luxury of multiple dating apps, it's still difficult to be on apps and to negotiate all those dating dilemmas. How does one meet queer folk who could potentially be dateable? What is the dating scene like today? Is it just apps, or are there other ways to negotiate this landscape? Let's dig in and find out some more. So I'd like to welcome our very gorgeous and very brilliant guest. Hello to the lovely Dr. Trinetra.
Hi.
Who is an out and proud transgender doctor, artist and content creator. Correct?
That is right. And very flattering, thank you.
And goddess.
And goddess.
Yeah. So Trinetra has also been acting recently and will soon be seen on 2 series on Amazon, right? I can't take names because my kidneys will be taken. But let me tell you that one of them is a very, very eagerly awaited season. So I could not be more excited than to have her here with us and to take us on her dating journey, which I'm sure is nothing short of bizarre.
It is, yeah, bizarre is the right way to put it, 100%.
So to start with, firstly, disclaimer, old person, gay person, slightly
Shut
out of
up.
touch with what's going on.
What nonsense.
So forgive any transgressions. They come from ignorance and not intent, okay? So how do you identify? Did you say bisexual to me at some point? And how does that work in the trans world?
So I identify as a transgender woman. For the most part, in most aspects of life, I just say woman because I don't believe that people deserve definitions and explanations. And when I am in safer spaces, I'm much more okay with talking about exactly who I am. But trans,
Yeah.
stick to trans. And bi is a label I'm still exploring because I had a girlfriend back in high school.
Wow.
And
Before you transitioned.
before I transitioned. But it was uncomfortable, and I'll tell you why. Now, the thing is, can I say the word faggot?
Of course, you can say fuck, faggot, everything.
I was that faggot in high school that was known as this extremely faggoty faggot, okay?
We've all been that person, yeah.
And I'm saying it in a way to reclaim it and not to be derogatory in any way.
Applause.
Because, why shouldn't I, right? But as that kid who was so out and proud, I didn't know I was into women because I was a lot more strongly attracted to men, which is still the case. That's
Right.
not changed.
Yeah.
But I went to Germany for this exchange program situation, and lo and behold, I met this gorgeous, German girl, and she wanted someone softer and sensitive. And that was me. And so
Sweet.
we started dating, and then
And
you
making
know,
out?
No, yeah. The thing is, I was so scared to do anything because in my head, she wanted me to be a boyfriend, sensitive and all, but still the boyfriend. And somehow that role felt very foreign and uncomfortable to me.
Alien.
And that was one of the first hints that, okay, maybe, there's a gender situation going on here. Because much as I was so attracted to her, and we're still friends and all, by the way, I just couldn't get myself to do anything because it was dysphoria inducing. But we still dated for like a month, and when we came back from Germany, the school was like shell shocked. The faggotist faggot has got this beautiful German girlfriend.
Yeah, of all people to score in Germany.
All people.
Yeah.
And everyone was so jealous and so confused, and like, I don't know, I think I was just enjoying that. And I told her this, that listen, I'm really enjoying this attention that I'm
Sudden
getting, this
fame, yeah.
sudden fame. But I think we eventually just became sisters and didn't even know it.
But even I dated girls, but I think mine was very much trying to prove a point.
Got it.
Trying to prove that I'm not
Yeah.
gay. So in fact, badly behaved when I look back at it.
Oh God, were you a fuckboy?
No, not at all. Nobody was fucking in the 80s, let me tell you. We were holding hands and kissing, and if you got a tongue in, it was like, ooh,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
big time.
Yeah.
Then let me tell you, then after uni, when I was dating somebody, in uni, somebody told, and my girlfriend told me, she said, you're gay. And I was so upset because we were in bed, not that we were doing the in and out, but we were in bed in a sexual situation. And she was like, you're gay. And I was like, how can you say that? Like, after what I've just done. But I think at some point then I realized that this is really futile. Like, I've got to stop this.
Would you say you always knew?
I didn't know the sexuality, I didn't know the terminology, but I knew I was different very, very early on.
Yeah.
And then it was a lot of negotiating that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to be.
Yeah. I relate because I think, so I was born in 97, and by the time I came...
I could have birthed you. Yeah, I could be your father.
Oh God. Wait, how old are you? If you don't mind me asking,
54
darling.
in a few months.
My parents are 54, you're
Exactly.
right.
And I cannot tell you how much I hear this in my dating journey. I'm like, oh, so your mother and me are the same age.
Listen, it's okay. My ex
Which
is
is
44.
so good for the sex, I can't tell you.
I know.
Your mother's 44?
Both my parents are 54. No, I was saying my ex was 44.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. but
Male
we'll get to
ex,
that.
female ex.
Men. I've pretty
Men,
much
okay.
only dated
Aside
men.
from Miss Germany, there was
No
other women.
So when I was growing up, we'd seen like gay people here and there. Trans though was not a thing only.
Correct.
Right? So for me, like you said, I had no access to vocabulary and terminology and dysphoria, no idea.
Yeah.
But gay, some people were talking.
Late
So-
90s, for God's sake, yes.
Yeah. And I think that was the only sort of word that came close to describing what I was feeling at the moment, which is attraction to men.
Right.
And as someone that was assigned male at birth, I was like, "Ha, theek hai, this is making sense only."
Correct.
But beyond a certain point, it did not explain things anymore. It explained what to call my attraction to men, but it wasn't explaining why I felt so uncomfortable and so like lost. And the idea of growing up to be a man was nauseating.
Really?
And it was nauseating. And I never understood why. I thought maybe it's just a patriarchy thing. So let me subvert patriarchy and be like fabulous and queer.
Take like a cerebral approach to it.
Yeah. And so I would cross dress, quote unquote. I would do drag sometimes in college. And
What
like,
fun.
Yeah. And like there were these fashion shows and I would do them in drag, like always.
And get away with it.
And get away with it. But I think by the time I figured out who I was, that I did in fact identify as a woman, etc., I was in college. I was in like final year. That's when I started going to therapy. That's when, the medical process, the legal process, all of it happened, and it was too much.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And that said, dating also happened.
Oh, okay, nice.
Because after surgery...
Dating boys.
And the thing about transition is people don't realize that for those of us who do transition, not everybody does in the trans community, but when you do have surgery, etc., your dating pool just suddenly changes into cishet men.
Right, of course.
To a large extent.
Of course. And especially if you look like this.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Babe. Yeah.
But I was on Grindr for many years before I transitioned, because that's where you would meet queer men.
Right.
But, once I had surgery and everything, the body was no longer as queer as it used to be.
Right.
And became the object of attraction of predominantly cishet men.
Of course.
And the thing is, much as that felt validating in a way,
Yeah.
because, you are being seen
Yeah.
for who you are, to suddenly start dating people who have zero concept of queerness is such a strange scene,
Paradigm, yeah.
Because on Grindr and stuff, like, you share a lot of things as far as queerness goes. Your families, the dynamics, and this and
Yeah,
that.
your history.
Yeah. I mean, not that I had great experiences on Grindr, but still, at least the queerness part is somewhere there. But cishet men are at a whole other level of cluelessness.
Yeah, one challenge.
Oh, yeah. I've met wonderful people, I'm not going to lie, but
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. So it's
yeah.
not been just dark.
no. Dark,
nice.
yes, but fun also.
There's also been.
Yeah.
So coming from a historical perspective, let me tell you young people that I was in my 20s in the 90s when you were born, and it all began booming for India because liberalization, globalization, suddenly those were like words that we kept hearing. And while we had no concept of apps and technology, we were perhaps the first generation that saw a somewhat organized scene for queer parties. So these were underground bars, underground parties that were held in shady bungalows in Mud Island.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So you'd get a call and you'd be told that there's a party in 3 Saturdays in Mud Island in this bungalow. Don't tell anybody, blah, 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 blah. And there was, of course, cruising. Cruising was a big part of meeting somebody to hook up or to maybe date. But it wasn't for everybody, clearly. Okay. And like I was disastrous at cruising. And then, of course, the internet came along and changed the whole ball game. So my question to you is, Doctor, do you see tech as changing the scene for queer folks?
100%. I mean, see, I can't even imagine how hard it must have been at the time without having the internet around to have to find people.
Yeah.
And the isolation it must have been at the time.
Absolutely.
I can't imagine. For me, the internet happened, like, I first discovered Facebook, let's say, when I was in the 8th grade or something. So this must have been
13, 14.
Yeah, around that time. And
so around 2010 that we are saying, yeah? That's well into this century.
Yeah. And I remember there was this thing called Poke on Facebook.
Yeah. Which somehow to me still has sexual connotations. Like,
Correct.
so and so poked you. And I'm like,
Correct.
No, they didn't.
So when a dude would poke me, I'd be like, huh?
Yeah.
Ye
kya? Yeah.
This is not seeming very heterosexual.
Yeah.
So there were these weird things and quirks about social media that I think queer people had to navigate around and find our ways of building community and connection. And I think, for me at least, the first queer dating app that I used was Grindr.
Ah, okay.
So this was like, I would say 12th grade-ish. I was a minor, okay? I hate to say it, but...
You're making me very nervous.
I didn't do anything.
Okay,
I just
good.
used the app. But it was revolutionary in the sense that I had never seen so many queer people in the same space on the internet at the same time.
Yeah.
And to have attraction flow so freely now in retrospect, it's quite yuck.
Yeah.
A name, place, age, this, that. But like, it was very liberating to see that queer people had at least one space to, to be and not be judged for their raw sexuality.
Yeah, for sure.
And
it was a sex positive place.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Of course, not the safest, especially for someone that young at the time. So there were creeps.
Yeah.
And I was so naive. Like, I would give my address out and shit. I was so stupid. Oh my God. It's really bad. I was a Twink Pro Max.
I know. I've seen pictures. Like a cute little Twinkie thing you were.
And I was so popular as a twink. My God, everybody loved me.
God, I wish I had abs in my twink phase. Yeah. Would have really ridden it. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's mainly apps, right? So let's look
Yeah.
at some of the major queer-friendly apps and tell me if you've been on any of these.
Okay.
So most apps which were generic now do have specialized windows for the LGBTQ plus community. So there's OkCupid,
Hmm.
Tinder.
Hmm.
You've been on Tinder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Cupid also I tried for a bit, ages ago. Yeah, didn't
Nah.
like it too
Okay.
much.
Tinder?
Tinder, I've stopped. It's there on my phone, but I don't use it anymore because I feel like it's become like Grinder now.
Right.
Like, in the
Hook up.
sense, yeah, very superficial, hard to find connection, and just, nah.
Okay.
So,
But basically, it's all about the physical appearance then, nah? That sucks a bit.
it does. I feel like, like you said, has tech changed things? It has, but I think it's also brought on a certain sense of replaceability in a partner where, there is so much choice, especially now as a trans person, you can't help but feel pitted against cis women around you.
Of course.
Where it's almost like there's always someone prettier, hotter, smarter, more beautiful, more cis.
And will always be.
And will always be. And given that instant gratification nature of a dating app, it's brought on this hellscape era of situationships.
Right. Yeah, which I'm going to come
Which is
to.
a thing now.
Yeah.
It was a rarely used term, but now suddenly everyone's like in a
Yeah,
situationship.
everyone's saying I'm in a situationship. Yeah.
So it's, I think that's the downside of tech, where there used to be a certain value, I think, to building on a connection, to working at it,
Right.
which I see dwindling, and that makes me a little sad.
Yeah, and attention span is very limited.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
that, I remember like being in bars in New York, it's that syndrome for me that you're talking to somebody, you find them cute, but you're looking beyond them to see
yes.
who's cuter.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it never
Yeah.
ends.
Yeah.
Is there any trans-friendly app that you use, or is there any specific niche-oriented?
I have heard of this one thing that a friend in the States uses where it's, what's the name? It's specifically for trans attracted people,
Right.
which I don't know is a legitimate sexual orientation, because more often than not, when a man says that I'm exclusively attracted to trans people, it does take on the note of a fetish.
Fetish, absolutely.
And the difference between a sexual orientation and a fetish being that a fetish is about the object and not the person.
Right.
And is very replaceable. I don't care what is attached to that foot
as
or that
long as-
piercing,
yeah.
as long as it's there.
Right. Yeah, which sucks.
Which sucks because it's reductive and you feel reduced to your surgical history or your body parts.
And a physical type.
A type, exactly. It's like someone having a thing for an ethnicity, right? Where
Right.
it's automatically reductive and
Right.
almost racist even.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of fascism on apps. We all know that.
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure. So I think it's for trans attracted people, but I've never used it. I personally don't use a trans specific app. I've mostly been on, I would say, Bumble mostly.
And that works?
I've met some nice people, for sure. But lately it's been shat.
Get your act together, Bumble. Moving on to app stories and observations. So my first internet hookup, which is quite funny, was in the early 2000s. I'm not joking. He was a dwarf.
Okay.
Okay, and I know that's not a derogatory term because dwarfism is a medical
Sure.
condition,
Yeah.
right? And while I have no issues with dwarfs, I do want to know that I'm going on a date with one. No, at least I should know. At least you should
Sure.
mention that I'm under 5 feet tall in your profile somewhere.
Sure. Yeah. So that's actually very interesting. And I'll tell you why. Because, when it comes to disability, and even being trans for that matter, something that you find in both these activist spaces is a lot of pride in those identities.
Exactly.
And something that I debate constantly is, should I really put on my profile that I'm trans?
Right.
Because I, of course, will tell somebody if they deserve it. And of course, this is a part of who I am and it's a big part of who I am.
Of course.
So my partner will know and should know.
Yeah.
But putting it on my profile is something that I'm still not so sure about because it's also such a personal part of who I am because it is my surgical history. Do I want men out there to know when they don't deserve it? I mean, it's a
Right.
whole other thing for disability. I wouldn't know.
Yes.
As an able-bodied person, I have
Yeah.
absolutely no idea what the dynamics are. But only correlating, there have been instances where people have not known because it's just not come up.
Yeah.
And I've been at parties and it's just not the space to give a TEDx talk to
Yeah,
someone.
correct.
You know?
Hi,
so-
I'm Trinetra, I'm trans.
Yeah.
It's not Alcoholics Anonymous. Yeah.
And so it's not come up. And for me personally, I mean, I do know girls who don't say things even after hooking up has happened and they've gone all the way.
Oh.
But for me, the thing is, it's such a scary place to be because with cishet men in particular,
Yeah.
the masculinity can be so fragile that by chance, if there is a scar that is suddenly going to come up in conversation, like, what is this?
Oh.
And you have to disclose. You don't know how they're going to react.
Of course.
You don't know whether
Eek.
it's going to turn into aggression, into violence, into whatever. So for me personally, that's not a space that I feel safe
Right.
in, you know.
Yeah.
So I personally do tell people exactly who I am because
Yeah.
at this point it's like, if you're going to be inside me, you better know. You better know exactly who I am and how proud I am, because if you can't be at least as proud as I am of me, then fuck off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, leave.
absolutely. Yeah.
I don't want to bring shame into my body. No,
Yeah,
thank you.
wow.
You get lost.
Nicely put. Nicely put. There's a certain language that's used on apps which is very
Yeah.
interesting. On Grindr, every third person starts with "Hi dear,"
Hi, dear.
and I'm like, if there's an erection killer in this world, it's being called dear.
Yeah.
What-
I
what
do
do
say
you
it
get?
ironically only. Now, even I with my friends also be like, hi,
Hi,
dear.
dear.
How you are?
Yeah. What do you get?
On Bumble, there's not so much of that. Also, see, I don't want to sound elitist. I would never bash somebody for their grammar
Sure.
or, you know, where they come from with their English, etc. But it's not even about language. It's about being a gentleman. Sometimes it happens that someone's very nice to you, generally, because they don't know yet.
Right.
But when they find out that you're trans, it's like it gives them the permission to be crass.
Oh God.
You know, because they see you as the kind of woman that is different and probably used to kinky, you know, dirty things just because I'm trans. That's the
That's
association.
bizarre.
Yeah, because I think I know exactly where this comes from. That for a lot of cishet men, their exposure to trans people on a regular basis is as a category on a porn website.
Yeah.
We are tranny porn at the end
Yeah.
of the day,
Yeah.
which is where they mostly see us.
Where again the whole notions of fetishization and
Absolutely.
everything come in.
So whenever they see a trans person, it's automatically something to treat like a little plaything because she exotic, you know.
Eek.
So
That's terrible.
I've had doctors, you know, who'd be like very respectful and whatnot, and you know, while flirting, etc. And when they find out, suddenly it's like, oh, you know, can you tell me about the surgery? Can you? It's suddenly all clinical and you know, sexualizing, objectifying, fetishizing, and just strange.
Yeah.
I'm still a woman.
Right.
Treat
yeah,
me with the respect
exactly.
that you know you would treat any other woman with, if at all you do.
Yeah, if at all.
So yeah, it can be strange. Yeah.
Hmm.
No ouch and all. These fuckers, no. Like
But I remember, let me tell you, I remember doing one of my first documentaries and working with Hijra community in early days and them taking me to Mahim where there's a small settlement near the station. And most of them were sex workers. Again, lack of opportunity, lack of anything. And they kept telling me how a lot of cishet men will specifically come to them
yeah.
because it's a sexual fetish and how they actually feel like a hijra can give them more pleasure than a woman because I guess they were willing to do much more in sexually than their wives, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of them, including Urmi, mentioned abuse, mentioned being burnt with cigarettes, being hit, being slapped around. And it was par for the course,
Yeah.
which
I
is
think,
so dark.
You know, we as a country are so sexually repressed that those of us who are sexually liberated to some extent, often in the form of, you know, sex workers, have to bear the brunt of men discovering their sexualities in problematic ways.
Yeah.
and the wife at home may not want to take it in the ass, but he will come and make sure that someone else
Yeah.
does. It's a certain entitlement, na, ki this person's body is different, so this person automatically is not human and is not deserving of humanity, so I can treat this body however I want. So that's the
Thinking.
psyche, that's the thinking. And even with a medical degree, let me tell you, it doesn't change.
Wow.
It doesn't change.
That is so frightening. So it's not socio-economic or...
It is definitely part of it, but at the end of the day, no matter what privilege you have in life, whether it's socioeconomic, caste, class, this, that, at the end of the day, the label will follow you around for the rest of your life, in the sense that you're trans for the rest of your life. So that stigma will be there. It can't be undone by anything. But that said, like, please, darling, it's like this one identity and this one label has
Yeah.
given me the best parts of my life,
Yeah.
the best people of my life, also the best sex of my life.
Yay. Good to hear that.
Because, hello, when this is like way too much information,
No, please.
but
There's no such thing.
when you do have surgery and you suddenly discover that where there was one sensation, now there's like a clit and a G spot and a this and a that,
Wow.
you're just like,
Hey, thanks, medicine. Yeah.
I am so, like, every single time I have a great time with somebody, I send out a little prayer to my surgeon. Thank you for giving me. But in all seriousness, I have to say that medically transitioning was one of the most incredible and one of the most life-affirming decisions, not just because it let me be who I wanted to be,
Yeah.
and be who I always was in the inside, but it also allowed me to experience pleasure and dating in exactly the way that I wanted to, in the body that I wanted to. So if Miss Germany were to come along now, I'd be so comfortable and so happy to explore.
So I'd like to play a little word association game with
Okay.
you now. I throw you a word and you respond with the first thing you
Oh,
think
shit.
of. No filter, no censor, right? Breadcrumbing.
Bored of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Don't do it anymore?
I receive it all the time.
Oh.
And it's not fun. So no.
So for those who don't know, it's the act of sending out flirtatious but non-committal social signals,
Yeah.
i.e. breadcrumbs, in order to lure a romantic partner in without expending much effort.
But let me say this, like I was telling you earlier, na, ki trans women are almost like entitled to a lesser degree of commitment. But breadcrumbing is like the standard treatment that trans women get, you know what I mean? Because it's like, anyway, you're not the woman I'll bring home to my parents. Anyway, you won't be having my kids. So I'll
Wow.
breadcrumb you. That's how it can
Do they
be.
send you dick pics?
Dick pics, I think, is more of a grinder thing. It's
Yeah.
not so much a bumble.
Hi dear,
and,
dick pic. And I'm like, face to dikhao, please.
Like, here I am taking these gorgeous nudes in like these beautiful settings.
Yeah,
and whatnot,
so
looking
beautifully
like a-
shot.
Yeah,
goddess.
and then they'll
Yeah.
send one picture like that from down below.
Because apparently it looks bigger from down below, I found out. From up it looks less, especially if you've got an Indian rice belly.
Yeah, and I'm
Then
like,
you can't
मेरे से
see.
सीख लो ना, मैंने किया है इतने सारा. I will teach you.
How to take a good dick pic.
Been there, done that, bigger than that.
Yeah. Catfishing.
Catfishing never happened to me.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Great. Nice to hear. Have you catfished?
No, yeah, I'm too gorgeous. Like,
Yeah. I don't need to. Yeah. I don't need to take someone else's picture. Yeah. Cis boys. Men, boys, whatever.
Please grow up.
Yeah.
And go to therapy because बहुत expensive हो रहा है मेरे लिए therapy में. Like, do the work.
Friend zoning.
Done it. Not proud of it.
But you have to, yeah.
At some point, it does happen, and I think it's about being respectful and kind.
Yeah, I think
That's
it's
all.
better to friend zone than to breadcrumb.
100%.
Hai na? Or
Yeah.
catfish, of course. Hooking up.
Lots more to come in Bombay, I hope.
Yeah, welcome to Bombay. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to throw this out there. Dr. Trinetra has moved to Bombay.
She's a Bombay girl now.
She's a Bombay babe.
She's a Bombay babe.
Babe, yeah. Situationship, which we talked about earlier.
Painful.
Yeah?
Painful. I just got out of a strange situationship with a married professor. I knew that it was going to be complicated. It came out of just having a great working equation,
Right.
and I didn't necessarily mean for anything to happen, but it's painful when someone brings their kids over to play,
Wow.
and you know, he's like, "Oh, you want to play with Didi?" I'm like, "Bench,
Didi.
Didi."
Yeah. Now, I got asked by this young guy who I went on a date with and hooked up with, and he was like, "Oh, what a lovely, I'm really blessed. I have a place by the sea." So he was like, "Oh, what a lovely place. You're on the sea and all.
Okay.
I want to bring my mummy to see this house." And
Wow.
I was like, first you told me your mummy is your age. Then you want to bring your mum to see this. Like, how are you going to explain who I
Oh my
am?
god.
Like, what are you going to tell your mother who doesn't know you're out or bisexual or gay or anything? I'm not sitting and meeting your mother. It's a bit
Yeah.
it's a bit too quick.
Strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are apps just for hooking up?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I've met people that I'm still very good friends with.
Nice.
I've met people I've worked with. It's like, I think dating apps can be like a great networking space, provided that your intentions are clear from the beginning.
Right.
I don't want to go on a date and then you pitch your startup. Bitch, please. I'm not gonna do that. It has happened.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm just like, fuck me.
Yeah.
Like, what are
Yeah,
you doing?
literally, yeah. Okay. So one phenomena I've noticed in the gay world is the propensity of very young men wanting to hook up with older men. So God bless them, their weak eyesight and their lack of ageism. But
Yeah.
it's often, they want a sugar daddy, or as I've found out in episode 1, glucose guardian is the gender
I don't want the
neutral
sugar.
term.
I don't want the glucose. I just want a daddy.
Daddy, yeah. But it's odd. None of the age-appropriate men, the older
Yeah.
men who I message, will
Yeah.
reply. They won't even
Really?
reply because we're all in our 40s or 50s. They won't
That's
reply
so
because
strange.
they want Mowgli in a
Ah.
loincloth. Na? They want this young little sex slave
Oh God.
who's 20 and ready to do
Wait, what is your type?
similar to yours.
Older men.
No, where older men for me be 90 then, babe, or 80. Then there's no sex happening, na? Then it's all cerebral. I like
Cerebral can be
masculine.
the
I like
norm.
masculine guys.
Masculine guys. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
For me,
Which is why I'm single at 54.
ayo.
I think.
We will, you know what?
We will conquer.
We will conquer.
Yeah.
We will find the right people. But I also have a thing for older men. And
But you can. You're in your 20s.
yeah, but the older ones are all divorced and fucked up and want to
Right.
fuck around. And
You'll find a fox.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope
Like
so
I said,
too.
it's not about the sugar. I will make my sugar. Just give me the
Yeah,
daddy.
I don't need. Yeah. I'm open to a sugar daddy, but he'd be a
Yeah.
sugar great grandfather by this point. So there's a lot of no and there's a lot of fascism, huh? No oldies, no femme.
No femme. No femme.
This needs one
Yeah.
whole episode
No
in
fat.
itself. No fat, no femme. Yeah.
I used to get no femme all the time. I was too femme for Grindr.
Yeah.
Because I had photos up in drag and stuff. So
But how can, I mean, like, most gay men are femme to
They-
some extent.
they are, and I think it's just a lot of internalized misogyny and a lot of internalized homophobia
Yeah.
and transphobia.
Straight acting.
Straight acting.
Why are you on a gay app?
Why exactly? To the extent that I've had like bisexual men, like I do sometimes date bi men also, but they're straight acting.
Right.
You know, and they get really strange about hanging out with me in public or, introducing me to friends because as a result of me being trans, somehow it's like their orientation as straight may get questioned.
Right.
Which is strange because, like, have you looked at me? If you're attracted to me, how is that any
Yeah.
amount of gay? What
Yeah.
the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's a thing. It's a thing. Like doctors, this one doctor that I was seeing, we had so much connection over medicine.
Right.
And when you're in the same profession and you're passionate about it, it's a whole other level of connection now with
Yeah,
somebody.
of course.
He didn't know I was trans.
Oh.
So the entire time that we were working together, that chemistry that we had,
Yeah.
it was completely
Wow.
genuine and devoid of labels, which is so rare.
Yeah.
And
Especially for
then-
you, I guess.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because I operate under the assumption that everybody knows. That way you can't be
Yeah.
hurt.
Yeah.
You can't be taken by surprise. when someone reacts poorly. But when I told him something along the lines of, so he was like complimenting my name, I think, and I was like, yeah, I chose it for myself. He's like, what? What that is meaning?
Yeah. How? What
How?
does Trinetra mean? It's a beautiful name.
Trinetra means 3 eyes, very literally, but it's another name for Durga.
Ah.
Because I wanted a name that was synonymous to a goddess and sort of stood for that
Because I
kind of.
am.
Because I am.
Yeah.
And he used to keep calling me that, his goddess.
How sweet. How sweet.
God, so cringe.
Okay, so in the boy world, there's a lot of sexual dynamics that come into play. The
Yeah.
whole top, bottom,
Yeah.
verse, active, passive side that comes into play. Are you familiar? Are there equivalents that
Very.
you encounter?
I would say that, with cishet guys, they're so like only. Cishet guys are very vanilla, yeah.
Yeah.
They don't. Even their idea of kinky is vanilla, It's like because we as queer people have explored so much because we've had to question so much about what we've been taught is normal.
And I think after what you've gone through, there is a certain amount of sexual liberation that comes with
100%.
that.
And I think, at least on Grindr, I was twink, I was
Yeah.
proper twink, and
God, you could have made millions.
I know.
That's
I'll make
what I
millions
keep
anyway,
thinking.
darling.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Sushmita Sen. I don't need a man. Yeah, I buy my own diamonds.
I buy my own diamonds.
Yeah, fab.
But I think that it's interesting to have these conversations with cishet men because, for example, again, TMI alert, they're so blissfully unaware of this beautiful world that is the asshole. And their prostates, it's like they don't even know they exist.
That's what I keep telling them. I was like, prostate fun.
And it's sad. It's sad. So, but anyway, point being that it's always slightly complicated to explore your sexual dynamics with a cishet man because you've done it so many ways. You've had a different body. You've explored sex and sexuality in 2 different bodies. You have like
How amazing.
mad experience.
Yeah. That's amazing, actually.
It is. I like to think of it as such a positive.
Yeah.
Because I can teach you things about your body that you didn't
Yeah.
know,
Wow.
As a doctor and
Double degree. Yeah.
double degree.
Double degree. Man, woman,
No.
doctor, everything. Check, check, check. Fab. So, does the legal angle play into your dating dynamics at all? Even though Section 377 has been read down, does that actually play into how you date? Like, for example, let me tell you, if I go out on a date with a guy, very often we're stopped because we're seen as 2 stag men. We can't get into a club because
like
they're
that.
like, stag not allowed.
Right.
Whereas with women, I think it's easier if 2 women go out because they're
Sure.
only too happy to have more women.
Yeah, that is there. But I would say that for me now, as a trans person, I'm very privileged, Ashish, in the sense that I come from, touchwood, I come from a lot of security and safety that has resulted from my family being accepting of me.
Yeah.
So, my dating scenes therefore become a lot safer. Or me exploring my sexuality becomes a lot safer. For a sex worker, for example, to be exploring just their job, forget sexuality. Or even if I appeared more visibly queer and visibly trans, I'm sure a cop would stop me,
Yeah.
and say, "What are you doing? Are you
And be
soliciting?"
exploitative. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen this happen with so many friends of mine.
Really?
Yeah, and I think that's also something that in the initial stages of my transition would scare men off.
Of course.
So things are different now, but I would say that so much of how comfortable I am, unfortunately or fortunately, comes from me being able to navigate a cis world a certain way.
Right.
In a way that in some ways is acceptable and respectable. Just the fact that I'm a doctor helps me walk into so many rooms and not have an issue,
Correct.
which is such a privilege.
Of
right?
course.
I think for trans people, it continues to be very, very hard. Legally speaking, I mean, getting a house. Like
I know
just
you
moved
just
here.
had trauma about that, right? What was it? Some landlord found out that you were trans and said,
Yeah, it was a couple of them actually. So the thing is, I tell them that I'm a doctor or whatever.
They love
and
that.
They love that. And then they want to know where you work and stuff. And you tell them that I'm taking a break. And then they're like, okay, so what do you do? And you say you create content. And they're like, oh, sure. And all of my content, so much of it is centered around queerness and being trans. And all you have to do is Google and you will
Yeah.
see my pura
Yeah.
history there.
Yeah.
And then the broker reaches out and says, madam, he's not okay with transgender living in, I'm like, what the fuck? This is, I'm hotter than your wife will ever be. I'm more qualified than both of you will be. Like, what are you doing?
And I'm not sex soliciting. I don't need to. Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about tech, and I definitely think tech has made it easier for those of us that unfortunately have to rely on sex work.
Right.
Made things safer, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But as far as the law is concerned, it's the most basic of things here with trans people. Getting your name changed, your
Yeah, of
documents
course.
changed, and it's such an
Everything,
elaborate,
yeah,
long-drawn
process.
process that at some point it will play into your dating also.
Huh.
If I've not changed my documents, then it becomes a same-sex marriage, right?
Right. Oh, right. Which doesn't even
Which
exist.
doesn't exist.
So there is a dark side which we are hinting towards. There's a lot of creepy stories about the dark sides. I mean, fake profiles and pictures are banal because it's so daft. Eventually, you're going to meet that person and you're going to know that, oh, he's an actor in some lesser known TV series. Yeah, whose picture you've been seeing. People put up Hrithik Roshan's picture and
they
Farhan Akhtar's picture, and I'm like,
do.
oh my God, like, is Hrithik on the app? Like, what are we supposed to think? Then, have you heard of this foreigner scam that's going around?
What is
So
this?
basically, George Clooney or some absolutely dashing, handsome guy in a beautiful suit or in Dr. Scrubs is another very popular one, will strike up a conversation on Grindr. They will fall in love with you in 3 days. They will be
Okay.
coming to India in 5 days. Then they will land in India. They are somehow stuck at customs.
I've heard of this.
They have got you a really expensive gift, which they send you pictures of, but they need a demand draft or Indian currency because they've gotten stuck at custom, and people are falling for it left,
Yeah.
right, and center
Yeah.
and sending money,
It's
which is
so
also
sad.
a symptom of sad. Yeah, sad.
It eventually boils down to loneliness, na?
Yeah. And desperation.
And desperation.
Do you really think George Clooney is in love with you and coming to India? And
I think it's something that we as queer people we don't get to talk about as much because we spend so much of our time being stoic and strong and powerful in the face of society giving us shit.
yeah,
We don't feel safe saying that we're lonely. And it's sad, but it's true.
You've never been scammed, at least.
Oh my god, I have a story.
Oh, yay, tell.
Do you want to hear? So there was this pilot, okay, that I met on a dating app. I was 23 years old at the time. I was so stupid and naive. He was 42 at the time, okay, and very good looking, very buff, very well built, all of that. Also Bengali, so I'm half Bengali. And so he was like, do you want to get on a phone call? I don't do phone calls, but he was very insistent. I'm like, theek hai. And he's such a smooth talker. My God, full flirting, this, that. And is very open about me being trans, all of that. So I was like, wow, like for
Is
a
this
man,
it? Yeah.
yeah, for a man, I don't hate me, for a man that age,
Yeah. Younger than me.
to be so chill is rare. Like,
Correct,
factually
correct.
speaking.
Yeah.
So we met and all. I wore a sari, to meet him.
Oh,
So
and you look
stupid.
great in saris.
Thank you. And he didn't deserve it at all. But we met for like a whole week. When my parents were living in Chennai, this was. So I was seeing him there.
Right.
And I realized after about a week, I'm paying all the bills. Because
Oh.
I'm generally someone that's like, I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
And he would let me. He never once said, I got this, or next time, whatever, So I was like, 42 years old, pilot, strange.
Earning, obviously, well.
I would feel really weird having someone that much younger than
Yeah,
me
20-year-old or 23-year-old girl.
pay the bills. And, to the extent that even the hotels that we'd book, I would pay for.
Oh.
And it felt strange to ask, to be like, okay, no, you cover the hotel, because I wanted to spend time with him.
But that's
But
weird.
it's very weird.
And he didn't address it at all. He never said, oh, I've forgotten my wallet or my card is something or nothing.
No.
So he was just along for the ride.
I think so. And I was so blinded by the affection and the gentleman and this and that. I was like, oh my God, mom, he's holding chairs for me and shit. Because the bar was that low.
Shit.
And I was so used to being treated like garbage. I was happy that someone was at least taking me out.
And then how did you twig or what happened?
I told mom about it. And she's like, show me his LinkedIn. And I showed her. It was like empty. And his Instagram and stuff also was like very birds and trees and random shit. And she's like, do you know where he stays? And I'm like, no, not really. And she's like, okay, wait, what do you know about this person actually? And I realized I didn't know much.
So kind of catfished in a way.
In a way, I would say. And strangely, when I opened Bumble like day before yesterday, he was there.
Oh God.
He was there.
Still at it.
Still at it. Same pictures. Nothing has changed. Same bio. Same everything. And, you know, I was like, listen, I want to address this. So I asked him to meet. And after I sort of had that conversation, I said, let's meet. He just didn't show up. He left me waiting at a mall for like 6 hours or something.
Wow.
At which point I was so into this guy. I was like, oh, I'm so
Heartbroken. Yeah, of course. Damn.
But he claimed to date Rana Ayub at some point and gave me one elaborate story about, you know, how wonderful she is. I texted her. I'm like, listen, I really need to ask about this because I'm a little
guy
scared.
genuine? Yeah.
She's like, I have no idea who you're talking
Oh
about. I'm
God.
so sorry.
How weird that he thought of Rana Ayub of all people and, you know, someone cool, someone out there, someone brave. Wow. Then, of course, there's also heavier stuff: assault, rape, extortion, blackmail. There are stories of kids taking someone home to find a gang of rowdies land up a few minutes later.
My God.
Recent statistics have showed that 91% of victims don't report their crime.
Right.
So we need broader laws. Instead of broad anti-discrimination measures, Indian laws require sexual minorities to claim protection via legally and socially defined identity.
Absolutely. I think two things, right? One, it is so important to address sexual assault within the queer community also, which we don't do.
Which we don't do.
At all. And yes, 377 being read down makes a lot of sense.
Of
but at the same
course.
time, we do need protections for young queer people who may be assaulted by other queer. I've been there, you know. But I was in hostel. I was living in boys' hostel. And I was sexually assaulted by somebody.
Wow.
And at the time, it wasn't considered sexual
An
assault.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry.
It was
to hear
considered
that.
ragging. So that the punishment was that.
For ragging.
So he was basically suspended for 15 days and he was back.
Eek. And you had to live with him around.
I left. So by the time I started transitioning, I was like, I can't do this shit. So I left.
Too much.
And that, apart from that, there's also the fact that the Trans Act, when it lays down anti-discrimination measures for trans people, including assault, it's 6 months to 2 years. Which
The
is
sentence.
the sentence for sexual assault. Where for a cis woman, it's like 7 years to 10 years to life.
Wow.
So there's a clear
Difference.
difference and discrimination there, which...
Shut up.
Yeah.
So if you assault a cis woman, you're in for 7 years.
Yeah.
If you assault a trans woman, to 2 days.
6 months. And it's
6
bailable, na? 6 months matlab bailable. So tum nikal jaoge.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm lucky that my documents say female. Because then at least legally,
Yeah.
you have to stick to the 7 years or whatever. But for somebody who's got
Why
trans
would
in
they
their
make that
documents...
discrimination?
It's strange. That was one of the things that was being protested in the Trans Act.
Right,
Because
yes.
it wasn't done very thoughtfully. It
No, of
seemed
course
very
not. There were a lot
perfunctory.
of stupid things in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously it is darker and shadier. I mean, we all know that trans women have the highest rate of violence towards them.
And especially trans women of color, of course, in the States, etc.
Right.
And belonging to marginalized communities in India.
Which is same over here. Right. Have you met any cis guys who are worth taking home to mama?
No.
Still looking. Okay.
Still looking.
How do you tell whether it's just sex or whether there's more that they're after?
You can never tell.
You can't tell.
You can never tell. It's a matter of figuring it out over time. Because the first time you never know, right? It's when the chemistry starts to fade and when consistency becomes more important, that's when you know.
Right.
So Yeah.
But let's not end this episode on a dark note.
Yeah,
There are also happy
no.
stories. I mean, there's couples who met online and lived happily ever after. I know a lesbian couple,
Okay.
one of whom was in India and the other one was abroad.
Yeah.
They began chatting online and an affair started online. The Indian woman invited the other to stop over on the other woman's way home to Sydney. They met at the airport. They met virtually finally in Bombay. And that was it. The other woman never returned, and they've been 20 years together with a lovely little boy now that they have.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And speaking
So how's
of happy
that for a happy
stories,
ending? Yeah.
I have to tell you this one really happy story. So this is when I had just come out, okay, in the 12th grade as a queer boy, and I didn't know anything about anything.
Which was your first coming out.
My first coming out, and I downloaded Tinder, I remember, and I'd matched this person. So they took me to our first date. They took me to this place called Queer Campus in Bangalore, which is a safe
Yes,
space.
I've heard of this.
And I was like, oh my God,
In
like it
heaven.
changed my life.
Yeah.
I met such amazing people. And just
So nice.
for the first time to have that permission to be yourself, you know, to be given to you by someone you met on a dating app, that's rare.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And and to think that that was one of the first experiences that I had meeting someone off of a dating app is still, it blows my mind to this
Yeah.
day. It's like, wow, like Ian is their name. I'm still in touch and
How
they're
lovely.
a good friend.
Well done, Ian.
Well done, Ian.
And I think we must carry that forward.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, good.
We will, you know what? Let's be each other's wing persons.
Yes.
And go out.
You are very easy to wing, please. You
is
are the one who's going to be struggling and sing.
Not
He's
true.
a little old.
We will find absolute bangers of daddies.
I hope so. I hope we can do an episode with our success stories someday. So what's the moral to this story? Do you keep looking? I like Dora says in Finding Nemo, just keep swimming, just keep looking.
I would say just keep looking, but know your worth. Know your worth.
Because I'm worth it.
Yeah. Because if you
Yeah,
don't
I agree.
know your worth and
I
you
agree.
keep looking, you will find all the wrong things.
Yeah,
in all
and
the
we've
wrong
been
places.
there, we've done that. Now, abhi chalo,
Yeah.
khatam.
Yeah.
You have been amazing. I knew this was going to be lots of fun. I'm a little
Yeah.
worried that you and me can both be arrested for this
Oh my
episode.
God.
Like, I don't know, there's been a lot of stuff which is
No.
really out there, no? Our producers are looking a bit serious.
I think it's fine.
Yeah?
Nothing that can get us in trouble and all.
No, na? Liberated, sex-positive
Yeah.
people.
Great stuff.
Thank you so much, gorgeous Dr. Trinetra. You've been so much
Thank you,
fun,
thank
which I knew
you.
you'd be. And I'm so happy you did this episode because I was like, who do we get for dating? And I was like, who better? Gorgeous,
It's like
articulate, must have some crazy experiences in our country.
Yeah, it's like, you know, so much of my Instagram also at this point is like she must have fuckboy stories to tell. Itna content comes from it.
Yeah.
But that said, no, listen, I had a lovely time and it was so fun chatting about
Yeah. And you have to come over.
all of this. Absolutely.
And
you
I have
must
to come over
too.
for housewarmingness.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should really hang out actually.
And
now
I will
that you're
send
in Mumbai.
I'll send sexy boys to your place also.
Please do. Please let me send you my address right now.
You were listening to The Queer Podcast, hosted by Ashish Soni. Produced by Audiomatic. Producers for Audiomatic, Akanksha Kadam and Avdoot Khanolkar. Assistant producer, Nitesh Zuvade. Original title track by Shreejit Vijayan. Sound design, mix and master by Team Audiomatic. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guest and do not reflect the policy or position of any organization, entity, or platform. This podcast is not intended to harm, defame, or offend any individual, group, or organization, and any references made to persons, living or deceased, are purely coincidental and not intended to be taken as factual statements.